All right, let's jump right into this explainer and completely reframe one of the most debated TV characters of all time. I mean, for years, we've all argued about Ross Geller's jealousy, his stubbornness, and those absolutely spectacular romantic meltdowns. But today, we're shifting our view. Instead of just writing Ross off as a frustrating character, we're going to examine him as a deeply human study in resilience. We're looking at the data of his character arc to see exactly what it teaches us about surviving our own chaotic lives.
Just think about the contrast between where he starts and where he ends up. Season 1 Ross, he's heartbroken, incredibly insecure, and he desperately expects perfection and certainty from the world around him. He is carrying so much emotional baggage. But compare that to Season 10 Ross. He's experienced, definitely still very flawed, but he has fundamentally learned to accept life's chaos and uncertainty. And honestly, this proves that real growth isn't about becoming someone else entirely. It's about what you do with the person you already are.
And that brings us to the core thesis for today. His biggest transformation isn't becoming a completely different person. It's learning, often painfully, why the person he already is keeps getting in his own way. You see, Ross's journey is fascinating precisely because he doesn't magically become emotionally perfect. He just slowly and very painfully gains self-awareness about his own self-sabotage. Section 1. The illusion of control. When life refuses to cooperate.
So, Ross's primary flaw is his attempt to use his immense intelligence to try and control emotional outcomes. We see this right from the beginning with how he idealizes Rachel. Early Ross desperately wants stability, but life just completely refused to cooperate with his plans. I mean, look at the sheer scale of these back-to-back disasters. It's honestly almost impressive how chaotic this gets. First, his marriage to Carol ends. Then his wedding to Emily collapses right at the altar after he literally says his ex's name. And finally, that infamous Las Vegas wedding to Rachel creates yet another failed marriage by the time he's barely 30. His personal life is in absolute freefall.
And here is the crucial realization to take away from all this. Intelligence doesn't automatically create emotional maturity. Ross is a smart guy, right? And he completely recognizes that his life is chaotic. But his intellect cannot instantly grant him the emotional maturity needed to actually handle that chaos. Knowing your life is a mess doesn't mean you automatically have the tools to fix it.
So, when faced with all this terrifying uncertainty, he repeatedly defaults to a deeply frustrating pattern. First, his fear of losing Rachel triggers intense, totally irrational jealousy. Then, when he feels threatened in his relationship with Emily, he responds by imposing strict, controlling rules. And whenever his overwhelming personal life gets to be too much, he stubbornly seeks cold, logical explanations instead of dealing with the messy, painful emotions underneath. He consistently chooses to force control rather than actually feel the pain.
Section 2. Fatherhood and shifting stakes, anchors of change.
Something profound happens that interrupts this cycle. First, raising Ben forces Ross to do something he's historically terrible at, maintaining a functional relationship with an ex without any romantic attachment whatsoever. Having a son with Carol introduces him to a kind of emotional flexibility he previously lacked completely. He's forced to navigate a lifelong, unbreakable bond that is totally detached from romance, and that pushes him way outside his comfort zone.
And later on, with Emma's birth, the stakes shift permanently. Ross and Rachel become co-parents. They are no longer just two people caught in an endless, dizzying romantic cycle. Ross's choices now directly affect a child. This imposes a massive responsibility on him that goes way beyond his early season motivation of just trying to, get the girl back. The entire focus shifts from his romantic fantasies to a much larger shared reality.
With his romantic life constantly collapsing and the stakes rising incredibly high with fatherhood, you really have to ask yourself, how does he actually survive this constant chaos? When his personal life is an absolute freefall, how does he manage to keep moving forward without completely losing his sense of identity?
Section 3. Stability amidst the chaos, the paleontologist.
Let's look at the one crucial anchor that provides him with a stable sense of self entirely outside of his chaotic relationships. He starts out as a paleontologist at the Museum of Natural History and steadily works his way up to becoming a tenured professor at NYU. Even when his personal life is a complete and utter disaster, his genuine love of science and the steady career progression remain the most stable parts of his existence. It's not just a quirky character trait, it is a vital grounding force for him. Over these 10 whole seasons, this professional stability acts as a lifeline. It helps him realize a very tough lesson. Adulthood is incredibly messy. Marriages fail, carefully laid plans collapse. But your life doesn't actually end. You still have to get up, go to work, and teach your classes. This professional anchor grounds him when literally everything else is spinning out of control.
But hey, character growth is nonlinear, right? People regress. And honestly, nothing shows this better than the infamous "we were on a break" debate. On one side, Ross brings a strictly logical argument. He is focused entirely on technically defensible facts about their relationship status, almost like he's arguing a court case. But on the other side, Rachel is experiencing deep emotional betrayal, hurt feelings, and broken trust. Ross becomes so obsessed with winning the logical argument that the argument itself becomes more important than understanding her actual emotional pain.
Section 4, Resilience over Perfection, the final arc.
So how does all of this build toward the end of the series? In the finale, when Rachel decides to stay in New York instead of taking that job in Paris, it's not just a simple romantic victory. This decision involves their immense shared history, their respective careers, and of course, their daughter, Emma. The real, much deeper victory here is that their relationship can finally exist without Ross needing it to be perfectly controlled. He's not chasing a fantasy anymore. He's navigating a complicated, beautiful reality.
Because look, let's be honest, real people repeat mistakes. In season 10, he still gets jealous, he still panics, he absolutely still overthinks and makes highly questionable decisions. He doesn't magically stop being neurotic. But, and this is the massive takeaway, he survives the chaos. He has become vastly more capable of living with incredibly complicated circumstances without falling apart.
And that brings us to the core message of this entire explainer. Growth doesn't always mean you stop having the same weaknesses. Sometimes it just means those weaknesses have less power over your entire life. True character growth isn't about achieving flawlessness. It is entirely about building resilience against the things that used to completely derail you.
Ultimately, Ross learns this incredibly hard but beautiful lesson. Life can fall apart and still be worth living. He learns that a relationship can fail without destroying you, that a huge mistake can simply become a part of your story rather than the end of it, and that love can ultimately survive uncertainty, even if you're someone who is absolutely terrified of the unknown.
So, knowing what we now know about his deeply human struggle with control, I'm going to leave you with a final thought to debate. Was Ross actually the problem in his relationship with Rachel, or was their relationship doomed by both of them? It's a genuinely fascinating question when you look at the actual data of their character arcs. Let me know what you think down in the comments, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.